Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the early evening show with Eshaan Akbar. That's me. You might know me as a stand up comedian from the United Kingdom. I'm being very confident there that people from outside the UK are going to listen to this podcast. And look, I'm loath to call it a podcast because I don't want to, right? What I've framed it as is a video and audio journal of me and my life. Not my personal life, not too much of my personal life, but enough for it to be interesting, I guess. And I was in two minds about starting a podcast because, as a comedian, you kind of consume a lot of podcast clips. I've never watched a full podcast from beginning to end. So if any of you do that, you have my unending respect, particularly if you listen to the end of this or watch to the end of this particular first episode, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But all that said and done, I didn't want to do a podcast because I thought there were too many podcasts. And then I saw a clip of the comedian Joanne McNally talking to the comedian Mo Gilligan on his podcast, Beginning, Middle and End. And Mo made a very interesting point where he said, we always say that there's way too many podcasts, right? But no one's ever said that about books or about music. Now, that's true. I agree with him. I don't think there are podcasts that have moved people to tears. I don't think there are podcasts that have altered the way people think. I certainly hope there aren't podcasts that have altered the way people think. Certainly not comedy podcasts. If they're like specific, intelligent people talking about intelligent shit, then maybe you might change your opinion. I don't think anyone's had sex to a podcast. Call me crazy. I know it's 2026 and I know we're all meant to have kinks, but I don't think people get aroused listening to podcasts. Maybe they do. If you know any that are arousing, let me know. Now, you might say, music, I understand. You might have sex to music. What books could you have sex to? Have you heard of the Kama Sutra? It's literally a guide. There are literally books teaching you how to have sex properly. Now, could there be a podcast that teaches you how to have sex properly? Yeah, probably. Would it be arousing? I don't know. I've never checked. Maybe I ought to check that. But in any case, you know what I mean, right? Generally speaking, the podcast medium, although Mo is right, no one ever says that about that. No one ever says that there are too many podcasts. It's also true that there's no harm in there being another one, and whoever wants to listen to it and enjoy my company for the half an hour and 40 minutes that I'm going to try and do every week, by all means, sure, thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I hope that this podcast grows into something that you know and love and becomes a big feature of your life, That'd be lovely. It'd be lovely if one day someone's on a date and their date asks them, oh, what kind of stuff do you listen to? And someone says, you ever heard of the early evening show with Eshaan Akbar? Oh, that would be the dream, wouldn't it? For someone to say, you ever heard the early evening show with Eshaan Akbar? That's what we're aiming for. I guess the other thing we're aiming for is, I'm aiming for, is that one day there's a comedian, say in 10, 15 years' time, who wants to start a podcast and does what I did, which is I went back and listened to the first episodes I could get of the most successful podcast in the world, the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm not saying I'm a fan or not, I just know that it's a very successful one. Theo Von's, this last weekend, again, listen to his first episode. Just for inspo, So if you're listening to this 10, 15 years down the line, where this is the 9th of February 2026, so let's say it's 2036 or even 2041, quick maths. I hope you're listening to this and thinking, bloody hell, there it is, Eshaan Akbar's first ever episode of the early evening show. Now, why have I called it the early evening show? That's a very good question. Thank you very much for asking me. There was a time in my life that my dream was to host a late night show in America, right? I wanted to follow in the footsteps of great British exports like John Oliver. I was going to say John Stewart there, but John, I guess he's a British export because America used to be a British colony, but that's for another time. Anyway, um, to follow in the great footsteps, right, of people like John Oliver and to a lesser extent James Corden, and host a late night show. But what's happened is the late night show format is dying or has died. People would say they've died. And also, it's late, isn't it? The late night show. Now, I am a nocturnal animal, and I am recording this as it stands at 11:54 p.m. because I've just come back from a gig. But early evening just sounds like a really nice time to make arrangements, to listen to a show, to go somewhere. Like when my friends say to me, "Can we meet around early evening?" What that says to me is they'd like to catch a train home, and that's a reasonable hour, particularly when you're in your 40s, to aim to get home. All right. So that's why I've called it the early evening show. I think it's a clever title. Um, as is the first episode, look, not everything is set up. There might be some disconnect with the podcast art and the music and all sorts of other stuff. But just bear with me, okay? Look, I'm trying. And part of the reason I wanted to do this tonight, after this gig, was consistency is important. That's one thing I've learned as you get older, right? That once you start a habit, it becomes a habit. So the habit that I want to try and develop with this podcast is you get an episode every fucking Tuesday. Every Tuesday you get an episode. Why did I choose that day? No reason other than the fact that it is a day that calls out to me, and I think it might be because I was born on a Tuesday in 1984. I think Tuesday is like, I think it might be my second favourite day of the week, to be honest. It's quite high up there. It's quite high up there. Because even when I was working full time, Tuesday felt like the first day of proper work. And Wednesday rolls around, you're looking forward to the weekend. Thursday, it is the weekend. Friday, no one's coming to work. And then it's Saturday, Sunday. Do you know what I mean? So I think like Tuesday feels like my most productive day. And I thought, because it's my most productive day, why not record a podcast episode on my least productive day, Monday? So it feels like I'm doing something. And for everybody else on a Tuesday, which is their most productive day, I hope. I don't know. What's your most productive day? Tell me in the comments or whatever. Why not distract their day with this podcast? No, not podcast. Video and audio journal. That's what I'm going to try. Do you think there's a way that we can make this happen where video and audio journal becomes the MO for the show? Like people say, I'm not listening to a podcast. That man on a date, right? He says, the woman says to him, or it could be a man, whatever, you're on a date. I didn't even need to specify that it was a man on a date. A person is on a date, and their date of any gender or sex says, what do you listen to on the regular? And the person on a date says, I listen to the audio and video journal of Eshaan Akbar called The Early Evening Show with Eshaan Akbar. That's what we're going for. All right? So if you can make that happen, that'd be really great. What is the podcast about? Very good question again. Thank you so much for asking. I don't know. All right, that's the truth. I don't know. I think I certainly want to give you an update on what I'm up to. I certainly want to find a way to share my thoughts on what's going on in the world, but not so much like a politically, more fun stuff. There's loads of political podcasts out there that you can listen to and get angry by, and I will talk about that from time to time. It just slips out, the politics. It slips out. So that might happen. But over the course of the development of the show, it will turn into things that you guys like. All right. So the more feedback you give me, the better, really, because then that way I can develop the show into something. For now, though, on this very first episode, this is just giving you a bit of a status update, really, of the where we are with this very first episode, brand new. And then I'll give you a bit of an update on what I've been up to recently. And we can call it a night for that one, right? Because it's the first episode. So there's no point in me withering on about something when I haven't really got a plan. And it would be really nice to know and work out actually what that plan is going to be. But I do know this much. I'll give you a podcast on Wednesdays. You will hear my work-life updates. I'm leaving that quite broad. I'm not saying that I'm going to give you the nitty-gritty of every gig I've done. But work-life update, my thoughts, feelings and observations about stuff that I've found interesting. I might even do a bit of a flourish and look at stuff online while I'm talking to you, and you'll be able to see that if you watch this on YouTube. So that's quite an exciting prospect, isn't it? Like, we don't know where this is going to end up, all right? So bear with me. At the moment, I just hope wherever you're listening to this, the toilet, the car, at home, in your kitchen, wherever it is, I just hope that the tone of my voice isn't proving to be too shrill or too difficult for you to understand, and provides maybe some sort of comfort that you expect from an audio format. For those watching visually, I hope looking at me provides you some sort of comfort. I hope I'm not too garish to look at. I know I need to get the sides trimmed a bit here, just on my cheek there. But, quite a hirsute man. And maybe for the first episode, I ought to have made an effort. I'm wearing a nice t-shirt and a cardigan, So I hope that this feels cheering to you, Yeah. That's what I really want. I think that's part of the reason I do this job, stand-up comedy, is I want people to feel happy. Robin. Two very different people. Robin and Robbie Williams. Both funny, but I would argue that Robin Williams is perhaps known more for his funniness. And actually, I will say about Robbie Williams. Number one, two of my favourite karaoke songs, for sure. Angels, absolute banger. It never fails, right? People will always sing Angels. And Rock DJ. Two absolute bangers of karaoke tracks. And actually, I would say one of the last pop singers to come out of the United Kingdom to give us proper anthems. Now, people might say Ed Sheeran, Lewis Capaldi, singer-songwriters. They're not anthems, bro. They're not. The opening beats of those songs are not going to get people up on the dance floor, bro. Come on, man. And Robin Williams, may he rest in peace. What a phenomenal comedy talent. What a brilliant actor. What a brilliant improviser. He made so many things so much better. And he has a really seminal quote where he said that, I think comedians, or maybe he was talking about himself, we want to make other people laugh because we know how bad it feels to be sad. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Now that brings quite a dour tone to what this is all about, but essentially that is it. I just want to spread happiness, joy, fun. I want to say out-of-pocket things and realise, for people listening to realise, I'm fucking joking, mate. I don't actually believe all the things I'm saying. This is a comedy podcast. I put it under the comedy section of Podbean. Podbean being the hosting platform on which all these podcasts go out. Not advertising them. It's the one I'm using. That's inside information that you didn't need to know. But in any case, so yeah, that's where we're at. I think that's a fairly reasonable thing to do. And in fact, such is my excitement at the flourish of what I'm talking about. Right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little applause for myself. That's good, isn't it? I just learned how to use that. So I just wanted you to see that I knew how to use it, If I say something funny, oh, bloody hell, she's a right sort, isn't she? A bit of fun. Now, here's the thing. I hope you did hear that because I'm currently plugged into my laptop for no inexplicable reason, my headphones. So I'm just going to quickly plug it into the Rodecaster. Again, advertising for no reason. Just make sure that I can hear it. And then I said, oh, it's only the missus. Oh, yes. Come on, bruv. We're doing it. All right? Here I am, just trying to enjoy myself on a podcast by myself. I think it's important to just have a solo podcast. Oh, good question. Good question. Have I done a podcast before? Yes, I have. I've guested on many podcasts, and that's part of the reason I wanted to do a podcast of my own, because I keep quite often when I do a podcast, I get some amazing feedback from people. People say very kind and nice things to me. So that's one thing. And then I started a couple of podcasts with other people, and, they were really fun. Too Old Fashioned with Preet Singh and Shame is Delicious with Darren Harriott. Really fun. But for a multitude of reasons, they didn't work out as we would have hoped. But also the thing that I found about podcast partnerships is that it's a lot like dating, right? You've got to kiss a few frogs before you find your prince. And I don't know what it says about my current mental, physical, and emotional well-being that after kissing a few frogs, my conclusion is that the prince, after all this time, is me. Okay? It's me. I'm a prince. That was me heckling myself for my own comments, which you ought to appreciate is funny. What happens if I? What happens with the tone if I? Yeah, what happens with the tone if I go? Oh, after all that, the prince is me. Oh, that's good. I think that's really entertaining. Let's do that again. Okay, so here we go. Right, so after podcasting with lots of other people, after kissing all the frogs, I realised that actually, after all this time, the real prince is me. Oh, mate. Listen, if this is what you're getting on episode 1 of the early evening show with Eshaan Akbar, just imagine what episode 10, 50, and 100 are going to be like. That's a technical flourish. Oh my God. That is a technical flourish of the highest order. I am so proud of myself. I'm just so proud of myself. Do you know how long it's taken me to get to this stage? Not in terms of just age, but just, prepping all this stuff. Wow. Sorry, I'm just taking a moment to bask in my own hard work, to be honest. Yeah. It's important to appreciate yourself now and then. So, with all that said and done, yes, I have done podcasts before, but this is my first time doing a solo podcast. Well, that's a lie. I did a solo podcast, but I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and I got scared, and it was on Patreon, and it doesn't matter. But this time we're going to try and do it properly, right? It's going to go out on YouTube, and it's going to go out every week wherever you get your podcasts. So let's see how it goes, and your support will be very, very welcome. So I hope that gives you a bit of a précis on where we're at in terms of the podcast and the infrastructure generally. But the only format point, the only kind of structural element that I have of the podcast right now is an update of what I've been up to that might be fun and interesting to you. All right. I did a gig in a hospice yesterday. Well, that's a lie. It wasn't a hospice. It was a fundraiser for the hospice at a Holiday Inn off the A34, right, in Corby. I feel like that sentence got worse and worse with every word I was saying. It was a charity gig for a hospice, right? Charity gig for a hospice in a Holiday Inn off the A34 in Corby. That sound effect, to be fair to you, right? To be fair to you and to me, that sound effect didn't. I don't think it worked, right? So let's try Holiday Inn off the A34 in Corby. Oh, that was quite fun. That was quite fun. I enjoyed that. So yeah, like, was it scary? No, it wasn't scary. Scary is the name of the sound on the soundboard here, but was it scary? No, it wasn't. But it has all the makings of it being a tough gig, and it was absolutely brilliant. I was on with Alexandra Haddow, who was hosting, Jamie Allerton, who is just so funny, and Jamie Finn, who is also just so funny. Both really funny boys. Check them out. Alexandra Haddow, Jamie Allerton, and Jamie Finn. Alexandra Haddow is not a boy. She is a woman. Very much a woman. One of my more attractive friends, actually, of all my female friends. She'd be up there. I think she'd appreciate me saying that. She is yeah. Jamie Finn, very attractive. Jamie Allerton, attractive. You know? I don't know why I'm roasting these people when they're not even going to fucking listen to this podcast. Anyway, the gig was brilliant, right? I had a really, really fun time. And the Mayor of Kettering was in there, which also is, I think, such a British thing, right? I didn't realise that mayors actually still had to wear their necklaces. So if you're listening to this outside of the United Kingdom, in the UK, again, so confident. Who the fuck do I think I am? Anyway, outside the UK, mayors, they have to wear like a necklace, right? And he was so sweet. He was really up for it. We got into, while I was on stage, we started talking about the need to sort out the potholes in Kettering. And I made some sort of quip about Gaza. Don't worry about it. It was funny. You had to be there. And so it was a good sport. And there's a picture of me bowing to the Mayor of Kettering, which is very funny. I insisted that I do it. And I warned him that I would post the picture and say that the Mayor of Kettering insisted that a recently arrived migrant to the Holiday Inn bow at him. Which, to be fair, is fucking funny. So that was that. That was yesterday. Really fun. Went there, drove back. And then today, to see how the other half live, I did a little private gig at the Soho House in Mayfair in London. Now, the Soho House in Mayfair is so exclusive that not all Soho House members are members, right? It's only Soho House members who've been a member for 12 consecutive years or whatever the hell it is. I don't know why they chose the number 12. Whenever I think of the number 12, I think of the film 12 Years a Slave. And look, here's the thing. Are members of Soho House slaves in the archetypal sense? No, of course they're fucking not. But are they slaves to a corporate culture, a niche corporate culture where you feel like you've got to dress and look a certain way and earn a certain amount of money to be able to be a member of the club? I'd argue, yes. That is what I would argue. But I'm not arguing that right now because I don't want to. We can extrapolate that another time. If it's something you want to hear more about, please let me know. In fact, what I've realised is part of this podcast is going to be me giving you premises and ideas and thoughts, and I won't give you my feelings and observations until you ask me for them. You know? I won't give you my feelings and observations until you ask me for them. So that's my thought. And if you want to hear more, let me know. But in any case, the gig at Soho House Mayfair was brilliant. Again, a really fun gig. The audience were really up for it on a Monday night. And it was a last minute gig. And this happens sometimes, right? When you're a comic, or a good one anyway, is you get a message from a promoter who sends a message out to a load of people and says this gig is available. And then you just throw your name in the hat and because that promoter really likes you, they say, let's get you on. And I had a lovely time. So thank you to everybody who was at Soho House Mayfair. You're not listening to this podcast. You're also not watching this on YouTube. But on the off chance that you are, thank you. I appreciate you big time. Um, so that was good. And I've got a nice busy week ahead. It's been a really nice start to the year, and that's one thing I will say. January 2026 has been a really really nice start to the year. I hope it has been for you as well, but certainly for me, just putting everything together, getting the stuff that I want to get in motion for the rest of the year. I've been quite disciplined on that this year, which I feel pretty proud about. And it's nice to start the year with an airing of a TV show. Live at the Apollo aired this time, well, at the time of listening, this time last week, Tuesday the 3rd of February. So if you want to check that out, do. And I've got other fun stuff coming up, not just on TV, but in other mediums over the next few months, which is part of the reason I wanted to do the podcast, right? Which is to be able to talk about it and share it with you guys. So look, keep in touch. Keep in touch at the early evening show. In fact, I set up an Instagram for it, and I can't actually remember exactly what the Instagram handle is. Yes, it's at Early Evening Show.